One husband, one wife.
Both true crime fans.
A different case every episode.
One terrifying story at a time.
I'm Carla.
And I'm Phil.
Welcome to Terrifying and Twisted.
Yup.
Episode 8.
Numero 8.
What did you all think of the toxic girlfriend?
We've actually filmed this one back to back.
And I've just been and watched the YouTube videos of her interview.
So while it's uploading to Riverside, I showed Carla one of the videos from Shayna's police interview, and it was the one where she's
singing.
I know I shouldn't laugh, but it's just mad.
Honestly, there's no way on this earth that her defence team did not try and throw that out as a false confession.
Yeah.
I hope you lot have been and watched it, and at that point you will have already put it on our social media pages anyway.
But it's crazy.
But yeah.
She can sing.
Oh, well, I hope that serves her well in prison.
Well, she can also murder people, but she can sing.
Oh, and I would never have touched a gun.
She can sing Amazing Grace.
Yeah, and she can dance and prance.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness me. So, Mr. Hop, what we been up to?
Shout out to Mrs. Hopkins for a distinction.
In psychology, year 1 of uni.
Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Although the amount of times that I genuinely disliked that first year because it were all maths and doing different theory. Oh, it were annoying. But I did it, and to get a distinction, you were there when I opened my results, weren't you?
Yeah, I think you thought it were a misprint.
Absolutely. But it turns out that actually I can be all right if I put my mind to something.
So well done.
Thank you. We have been watching as first live trial that we've watched in a while.
Yeah, more so you than me.
Yeah.
I have been watching bits. I do know about the case, and obviously I've watched some witnesses, but it has been mainly you.
Yeah, because I've been doing it. I've been following it over on my TikTok, haven't I? And I've been doing videos on TikTok about it. So for anyone that doesn't know about it, there's a live trial currently happening. Can't remember what state it's in.
In Massachusetts?
I think it is. And it's against a lady called Lindsay Clancy, who it is alleged, it's not been proven or not yet, but the alleged story is she was suffering with postpartum psychosis, and she ended up killing her 3 young children and then tried to kill herself. Obviously, the defence are arguing that she wasn't mentally sane, and the prosecution are trying to say that she knew what she was doing and that her mental health wasn't as severe as she's saying.
It's hard because at the end of the day, 3 young children have died. I think they're 5, 3 and 8 months.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah. And it's horrific. There's no winners. And the biggest thing I've seen is the divide. Like, I don't think I've seen a divide in a case as much as this, apart from the Brian Kohberger case with the Idaho 4.
Which is just thingied back.
That's thingied back up as well, because he's obviously submitted.
Netflix have put out another documentary.
Yeah, we've not watched it, have we?
But I'm sorry, that woman deserves to go to prison regardless.
Well, I think this is what people are struggling to understand. Like, she's not going to be let free.
No.
It's either to determine whether she needs to be institutionalised in a mental facility to get herself better, or prison. Now, and this is just my opinion, and I have voiced this on TikTok, I genuinely believe, because of the amount of attempts that she has had to take her own life since this, bearing in mind she's left herself paralysed for life, I genuinely believe that she will not stop trying to end her own life.
Yeah.
So the argument isn't whether she's guilty or not, whether she killed the kids. She's admitted that she killed the kids.
I don't know if you'd agree with this or not. But let me see if I can word this right. Do you think it's slightly easier for men to be black and white and just go, no, give it death penalty. She's not a psychosis or a post-pregnancy stress ain't that bad because they're men and they don't understand what it's like.
I don't know if it's that. I do believe that it's very hard for a man to be able to even comprehend postpartum psychosis.
So it would make him
slightly easier to be black and white.
Yeah.
Now, we've been together 17 years, married 14. So we know each other inside out. And I do think there's been times, many a times, where you are very black and white. Whereas, and I'm not saying that you are not empathetic or compassionate, but I think you are very quick with your boundaries. And do you know what I'm saying? Like,
do you know what she's saying?
I know what I'm saying. Where I do feel like there's been times where we're watching true crime and pure example, let me pull it out. Can you remember when we watched the series? I think it was Channel 4 and it was the jury. Were it just called jury?
Oh, when they're doing that experiment for jury service, wasn't it?
The experiment. Now, can you remember how different both me and you felt about that? We was watching the same thing.
I can't remember the case, but I can remember me being on one side and you being on the other.
It was the woman, after a night out, her and a fella had gone back to her home.
Right.
And she stabbed him multiple times. He then managed to get out of the front door, crawl across the street to where his brother lives. She didn't tell his brother that she'd stabbed him. She just said that he'd been hurt. And then they presented evidence to say that this man had been abusive prior, there'd been domestic violence. And I remember very clearly, me and you were very different.
I can remember the case. I can't remember how passionate I was about it.
You was very passionate, let me tell you. But no, I don't know if it is just a man thing, being able to be easier to be black and white in terms of stuff like that. But I do think from our own experience, I do see that you are very easily quicker to make a decision in black and white.
Well, thanks for that.
I love you for it though. The same way you've had to say to me multiple times throughout our relationship, Carla, it's not your problem. It's not your fight. Stop trying to help everyone. Because you'll be like, fuck that. I won't do that. Why are you doing that? So yeah, don't mean I don't love you for it. So it's my case this week.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know why I do it to myself with names that I can't pronounce.
You must pick them on purpose.
Because this is a running theme between me and you. Let me get my notes. I don't think it's as bad as Legabokonoff though. Before we get started, just a quick trigger warning. This episode discusses the death of both an adult and a child. We'll also be talking about graphic crime scene details, suicide and serious injuries. So if there's something you find difficult to listen to, you might want to skip this episode or come back when you're in the right headspace. Are we ready?
Yep.
Born ready. So my case this week begins in Coronado, California. Coronado is a little island on its own. It's connected to San Diego by this huge bridge. It is beautiful. You've got beaches, palm trees, these massive luxury homes. It's definitely one of the places that you look at and think, yeah.
I want to go there.
And people with a lot of money live there.
So we're not going there.
Absolutely not. Now, sitting amongst all those homes is one particular mansion that has got a bit of history behind it, and it's called the Spreckels Mansion. And it's named the Spreckels Mansion after the family who were known as the Sugar Kings. Now, that means actual sugar, like harvesting sugar.
Right.
I thought it could have been like a Willy Wonka sweet factory, candy sugar. But anyway, the mansion itself is huge. It's got grand staircases, countless bedrooms, and probably more bathrooms than I'd ever want to clean. But in 2011, this beautiful mansion became the centre of one of the strangest cases that I've ever looked at. Police arrived to find a young woman hanging from a balcony. She was completely naked. Her hands and feet had been bound. That woman was 32-year-old Rebecca Zahau. Rebecca wasn't born in America. She was actually born in Burma. And from everything that I've read about her, she just sounded like someone who would brighten every room. Her friends and family described her as funny, caring, and someone that would put a smile on anyone's face. Life wasn't always easy, and eventually, political unrest in Burma eventually forced Rebecca and her family to leave everything behind in search of a safer life. And that's where they eventually ended up in America. For Rebecca, it was a fresh start. She eventually worked her way into healthcare and eventually became a surgical technician, helping prepare patients for surgery. It was here that she then met a man called Max Shacknai. At this time, Rebecca was 32, while Jonah was 54. The two hit it off almost straight away, and before long, they were in a relationship. Now, what Rebecca didn't know when she first met Jonah is that he was successful. I'm talking like rich. He was the founder and CEO of Medix Pharmaceuticals, which is one of the biggest cosmetic pharmaceutical companies in America.
Money.
Even today, if you Google it, is worth billions. So Rebecca had gone from building this new life in America to suddenly living a lifestyle that most people probably can only dream of. And from the outside looking in, you'd probably think she'd found her happy ending. But not everybody saw it that way. Rebecca's family weren't completely convinced about the relationship. They felt things had moved very quickly and they weren't really sure about Jonah. Rebecca's family didn't just think the relationship had moved quickly, they also weren't convinced about his past. By the time he'd met Rebecca, he'd already been married twice. He had 2 teenage children from his first marriage and a 6-year-old son called Max from his second marriage.
So they weren't sure about him because he'd been married twice.
And got 3 kids.
What's wrong with that?
Who are we to judge?
I'm just going to say.
We're not judging. Rebecca, on the other hand, had never been married and didn't have any children of her own. So as the relationship became more serious, Rebecca moved into Spreckels Mansion and began helping look after Max.
Spreckels is an awful name.
You should see it.
I don't care. I won't be. If my mansion were that glamorous, I won't be calling it fucking Spreckels. It sounds like a dog's name.
You cannot just go changing the name of history. Did you not hear the part that it's an historical building that
This bloke's got billions and he can't change his mansion's name from a dog's name.
Anyway, oh God, you really don't like Spreckels, do you? Oh. From everything that I've read, Rebecca absolutely adored Max. Jonah, as always, spoke very fondly about the relationship, saying Rebecca was incredibly caring and treated Max as if he was her own child. But Rebecca's family saw it a little bit differently. They couldn't understand why Jonah hadn't proposed. From their point of view, Rebecca had given up her own independence to help raise his son, yet there was still no engagement, no wedding plans, and they were worried that she'd become more of a living nanny rather than an equal partner. Obviously, whether that's true or not, we don't know. That is just how they felt. Things also became complicated because Max's biological mum, Dina Shacknai, was still very much part of his life. Jonah and Dina had divorced after Max was born in 2005, and naturally, they shared joint custody. According to Dina, she didn't have a problem with Rebecca being involved in Max's life. What she did struggle with was feeling like she wasn't getting to spend enough time with him. Rebecca's family, however, painted a very different picture. They said that the relationship between Rebecca and Dina had always been difficult from the very beginning, and Jonah himself also admitted that the two women definitely weren't friends. So despite all that, life carried on. It was the morning of 11th of July 2001. No, I'm lying.
Why are you lying?
What lying for? So, 11th of July 2011. Jonah had left the mansion to go to the gym, and back at the house was Rebecca, her teenage sister Zena, who was visiting from Missouri, and 6-year-old Max. That morning, Zena was staying in the guest area of the house, and Rebecca was in the master bedroom. Max allegedly... Are you all right there?
I was just making sure it wasn't our traffic going to come through, bursting through the door, that's all. Read again, you're on your third cut.
Are you keeping count? That morning, Zena was staying in the guest area of the house. Rebecca was in the master bedroom, and apparently Max was riding his scooter around on the upstairs landing. But then everything changed. Go.
You know your house is big if your kid's fucking riding about on landing on a fucking bike.
Scooter, but yes.
Yeah.
Both Jonah and 911 received a phone call. There'd been a terrible accident. Somehow, 6-year-old Max had gone over the banister and fallen multiple floors onto the ground floor below.
And that's why you shouldn't be riding your scooter or bike.
On a landing. Zena immediately called 911 while Rebecca rang Jonah. Jonah rushed straight back home, and Max was quickly taken to the Radley Children's Hospital. Both Jonah and Dina, his mum, made his way to the hospital. Rebecca later told police that she had been in her bathroom when she heard a loud bang. She ran out and found Max lying on the floor, but she said she had no idea how he'd fallen or what had happened. Her sister Zena's account was very similar. She remembers hearing the commotion before seeing Max on the floor and Rebecca looking completely shocked. One thing that Zena later recalled was Rebecca repeatedly saying that Dina was going to kill her for what happened because she should have been watching Max more closely. So while everyone waited for news from the hospital, investigators began to work out exactly how such an horrific accident happened. Probably not letting your child ride a scooter on the landing would help. So to help you understand this mansion, I'm going to stop calling it Spreckels Mansion because it offends you. So this mansion, you walk in and there's a big grand, the stairs are in the middle as soon as you walk in. So it's a grand like staircase. And now imagine a box, the landings run, then there's set of stairs, landing, set of stairs, landing. So you could see all the way down with stairs all. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When police started reconstructing what they believe had happened, they basically said that Max had been riding his scooter. Somehow it's tripped. He's gone over the banister. As he's gone over the banister, there's a big grand chandelier.
How big is this banister like?
Oh, but like it's
So a child's on a scooter, how old is he?
6.
Right. So it's probably about that big. And he's gone over the banister. Did he have a jump in the banister? Were he practicing tricks? Come on.
No. There's a lot. You're going to be asking a lot of questions by the time we get to the end of this. I promise you. So, as I was saying, there's a large chandelier. So police believe he's obviously been riding his scooter for whatever reason, tippled over the banister, grabbed hold of this chandelier to try and save himself. This isn't funny. Oh, but babe, stop it because I've got tears.
Just give me a minute.
People are going to think you are a piece of shit.
He's gone over the banister. And then she said, and he grabbed the chandelier like he were fucking George at Jungle.
Oh, God.
Mm.
Right. Are you composed?
Does this child die?
Yes.
Right, I'll stop laughing. Because he just sounded mad. He's gone over the banister and grabbed hold of the chandelier. What? What film are you watching?
Oh, God, I've got tears streaming down my face. Right. So when police began reconstructing what they believed had happened, they basically come to the conclusion that Max had been riding his scooter. Top floor. Right, I'm not cutting this out again. I am sorry, right? We've had to cut about 10 minutes out because Phil can't control his laughter. Right, let me just get through this bit.
Just quickly say it and then go on to the next bit.
He's been riding his scooter on top floor when somehow he's gone over the banister. As he's gone over the banister, he's basically grabbed hold of this large chandelier that's been hanging in the centre of the house, knocking it down from the ceiling. He's then struck himself on the back on one of the downward slopes of the floor below him and then bounced onto the ground floor face first.
And let's just clarify, I'm not laughing at what has happened. It's how Carla's described it, like he was George of the fucking jungle. He's done some sort of super move over this banister and grabbed this chandelier, swinging about at 6 years old. But go on.
Oh, God, I've had tears streaming down my face. Oh.
So yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, he's hurt himself.
I'm not laughing at that.
No. So Max suffered devastating injuries, including serious damage to his spinal cord and multiple facial fractures. The following day, 12th of July, Rebecca dropped her younger sister Zena back at the airport so she could fly home. But at the same time, Jonah's brother, Adam Shacknai, flew in to San Diego so he could be there and help support his brother. So that evening, you've got Rebecca, Jonah, Adam, and a friend called Howard all having dinner together at Spreckels Mansion. After dinner, Jonah then returned back to the hospital to stay with Max.
Yeah.
Adam was staying overnight in the guest house, while Rebecca remained in the main house. Later that night, some neighbours reported hearing loud music. Nobody thought anything of it until the following morning. At around 6:45 a.m. on the 13th of July, once again, emergency services received another 911 call. This time, it was Adam calling. Now, this is available for everybody to go listen to, and I highly suggest you do because I don't think I'm going to be able to describe it enough to hit home. But this 911 call would turn out to be something that people have picked apart for years following this. The way he describes what he found, like he doesn't ring and say, I found Rebecca hanging from a balcony. He basically says, oh, yeah, I found this girl. She's just hanging. And I've like sort of tried to cut her down. You need to listen to it. I'll play you it. But that 911 call becomes like, it's one of the biggest talking points in this case. A lot of people found it so strange because he knew who she was, they'd had dinner at night before, he was his brother's long-term girlfriend, so it wasn't just some random person he'd stumbled across. His whole demeanour was just, like, it was so nonchalant.
That's a new word.
It is. Anyway, so while he's on phone to dispatcher, Adam cut down Rebecca and began CPR while waiting for help to arrive. But despite his efforts, Rebecca couldn't be saved and she was pronounced dead at the scene. So Adam immediately texts Jonah, who was at the hospital with Max, asking him to give him a call. So when he did, he told him that Rebecca had killed herself. Now, I can't imagine being Jonah in that moment because your 6-year-old son's is in ICU, by the way, so he's not.
Yeah.
And now your girlfriend has apparently killed herself. But nobody could make any sense of it. As police began examining the scene, things became even more confusing because at first glance, it did not look like a typical suicide. First off, Rebecca was completely naked. And when I looked at this, the statistics on women that first of all use hanging to kill themselves is very low.
Yeah.
And second of all, women are a lot more conscious of how they are going to be found.
Well,
why would she be naked?
Yeah, because how many people talk about you need to have right underwear on
In case you get run over.
In case ambulance comes.
Ankles?
And I think only reason they might get naked is if they were going to drown themselves to get colder quick. That might be a thing.
That would make more sense.
Yeah, but not hanging.
No. Her ankles had been tightly bound together with a rope. Her wrists had also been bound together tightly behind her back.
Well, that's not possible, is it?
A long sleeve t-shirt had then been wrapped around her neck several times, and part of it had been stuffed into her mouth as a gag.
Well, she's not going to be able to do all them things to herself, is she?
You would think it was very highly impossible.
Highly impossible.
You would think it was pretty impossible to tie your own feet together, your arms behind your own back, put a noose round your neck.
And then something in your mouth while your hands are behind your back.
Yeah.
Not possible.
So all them circumstances together, everybody was asking, how? How on earth can somebody tie their own hands and feet, gag themselves, and end up hanging over a second floor balcony? And it is one of the reasons that this case, when I looked at, I've never seen, or I have seen it, that's a lie, but the controversy is like mad. So the San Diego Sheriff's Department launched a full investigation into Rebecca's death. As the crime scene investigators worked through the bedroom, they began documenting everything that they found. One end of the rope had been tied to the leg of the bed, the other around Rebecca's neck. It had been fed out through the bedroom doors over the balcony. Investigators found Rebecca's bare footprints on said balcony. Alongside them was what appeared to be one single boot print. Inside the bedroom were 2 kitchen knives, a smaller one and a larger one. The larger knife appeared to have traces of blood on it, even though Rebecca didn't have any stab wounds.
Yeah, well, that was going to be the first question. Is it like, whose blood?
So initially, investigators couldn't explain how that blood had got there or who it belonged to. But what was probably even stranger than that was a message that had been painted in black on the bedroom door, which read, "She saved him, can you save her?" Now, a lot of people think that refers to Max.
Mm-hmm.
The first officers to arrive on scene that morning was actually from Coronado Police Department. But because it was such an unusual and complex scene, they then called in the San Diego Sheriff's Department. One of the biggest criticisms of this entire investigation was because the San Diego Police Department left Rebecca's body naked on the floor for over 12 hours.
Fucking hell.
Didn't cover her up. Nothing.
Not even like a little tent or...
Nope. Nothing. During that time, news helicopters flew over, took pictures that was then used on national news.
Wow.
Rebecca's family have said out of everything wrong with this investigation and case, that is one of the saddest parts about it for them, that their daughter meant that little, that nobody covered her up, and news agencies thought it was absolutely acceptable to put her naked, dead body.
On national news.
Yeah. So, as the investigation continued, neighbours were interviewed. One neighbour claimed they heard a woman screaming help during the night, but investigators later disputed that account. It quickly became one of the many talking points surrounding this case. Adam, who was the only other person at the mansion that night, was questioned. He also agreed to take a polygraph test, and those results came back as inconclusive. Then, just 3 days after Rebecca's death, 6-year-old Max dies in hospital from complications caused by his injuries.
Yeah.
So now investigators weren't just looking into one death, they were looking into two. With both Rebecca and Max dead, investigators were trying to answer two very different questions. Was Max's fall really a tragic accident?
He's been thrown over that banister.
And had Rebecca taken her own life? Rebecca's family were absolutely convinced the answer to that was no. They always maintained that Rebecca wasn't suicidal. They believed somebody was responsible for her death. In fact, family members later said that Rebecca had told them just days earlier, Dina's gonna kill me. Now, whether that was a statement because, oh shit, I want looking after Max closely enough, he's had this accident.
People would say.
Yep, a figure of speech, or whether she genuinely feared her. Nobody knows. But it is something that her family have clung to for years. And at the very same time, you've now got Max's mum, who is fighting her own battle because she could not accept that Max had just fallen and tripped over this banister. She believed that somebody were responsible for pushing him, which you made a good point. Banisters aren't low down.
No.
So.
Could be bigger than this banister.
Yeah. And for him, and
you ain't gonna fucking trip over that. Shaquille O'Neal probably won't trip over that.
He's huge.
Yeah.
One thing to mention though, they had a dog called Ocean, and when Max first had his accident, although he was barely, like he were in and out of consciousness, it's reported that he was repeatedly saying Ocean, Ocean. So police did wonder, as the dog come running in as he's been scooting, knocked him off, and that's tippled him over.
Yeah, well, that could happen. It depends how fast and how hard that dog's knocked him up in air.
You don't know, do you?
Like, depending on what he weighs and stuff like that.
So now we've got two families, both grieving and both demanding answers, and both looking at investigators from completely different directions. As detectives continued interviewing witnesses, another person came forward claiming that they'd seen a woman matching Dina's description entering the mansion late that night that Rebecca died. But no evidence was linking Dina to Rebecca's death. So weeks passed, there were no arrests made, and there was very little information released publicly. But then around 7 weeks later, investigators decided to hold a press conference. After they determined they'd reviewed everything and that they'd reached their conclusions. Police stated that neither Max's death nor Rebecca's death involved any criminal conduct. The police stated that Max's death was from a tragic fall. They also believed he had either climbed or tripped.
See, he could have climbed the banister.
Yeah, he could have done. Kids climb.
Yeah.
Before grabbing hold of the chandelier to hopefully try and save himself, but clearly didn't. And they also concluded that Rebecca's death was in fact suicide.
No, not having it.
They said that they found no evidence that she had been physically attacked before her death. They also addressed some of the questions surrounding the crime scene. So, the police say that the only DNA recovered from inside the bedroom belonged to Rebecca. The boot print found on the balcony, investigators concluded it had actually been left there accidentally by one of the responding police officers.
Right. Which can happen.
The neighbour who reported hearing the screams for help, police just said, no, we don't believe you.
Right, so blood on a knife.
Investigators also pointed to the fact that there was 2 impressions, barefoot impressions, left on the balcony, which belonged to Rebecca. They believed that those marks showed that Rebecca had moved herself to the balcony before throwing herself over the edge. To support their findings, they decided to demonstrate how it would be physically possible for somebody to tie the bindings themselves with their arms behind their back. So this has been reconstructed, right?
By Houdini.
But what they failed to do, and I think it's worth noting, so again, I'll show you this. Maybe it's worth putting some pictures on his page when this episode comes out. But the way in which they're done, they're wrapped, so like in a figure of 8, multiple times, and the way they've reconstructed it, they've left the knot at the bottom here, so it would be possible for someone to grab one end at rope here and one end at rope here and pull so they were tight. But Rebecca's was the other way round, and the knot was at the top near her forearms. So how is she getting her hands?
And how would she know that?
So anyway, they reconstructed it. They basically said that Rebecca could do it herself. The police also acknowledged that small amounts of unidentified DNA had been found. There were tiny traces on the knife, on the balcony door handle, and on a pair of gardening gloves that was found in the bedroom.
Because that's where you garden.
But each sample was so small, it couldn't be tested.
Right.
So in their view, none of it changed their overall findings. Findings. So despite that, a lot of people could not accept the conclusion because everybody, apart from being so confused at how you would do all of that to yourself.
I just don't understand how you can tie your legs, tie your hands behind your back, put a noose on your neck and put something in your mouth.
Wrap it round your neck, head multiple times and then in your mouth. So the biggest question was why? Why would she kill herself? And investigators fully believed that she had overwhelming guilt over Max's accident, which pushed her to the state of despair. They believed that she blamed herself for what happened, and that ultimately led to her suicide. Rebecca's family have never accepted that explanation. They believed the investigation had been rushed. They believed important questions had been left unanswered, and determined to find answers for themselves, they made the decision to have Rebecca's body exhumed for a second independent autopsy. That examination reached some very different conclusions.
Mad, innit?
To the original findings. So the second pathologist believes that the injuries to Rebecca's head, I forgot to mention, so she had 4 blunt force trauma marks to her head, which the first investigation fully believed that she had hit herself on the way as she's thrown herself over the balcony. Although the only things that was below this balcony were bushes and trees. I forgot to mention that.
I need to see these balconies.
Yeah. So they basically said that it might not have been from the fall, and they believed it could be consistent with blunt force trauma sustained before she went over the balcony. This pathologist, he also questioned the bindings. The rope marks around Rebecca's wrists and ankles were that tight that they left bruising. He believed that they had been tied so tightly it would have been extremely difficult for Rebecca to have done that to herself.
So, welcome back to part 2 of episode 8. We have had to jump back on because
I'm a dickhead.
Carla didn't charge her fucking phone properly. So while we're filming the episode, lo and behold,
last 10 minutes is non-existent.
So we've had to come back on.
So obviously everything's going to be different. Lighting's going to be different and everything. But let's just jump straight back into where I left off.
Yep.
and we'll finish this case. But despite all that, neither investigation was reopened. So over the years, people have continued picking apart the evidence, looking for things that don't quite add up. For example, we've got Adam being the only person in that house that night.
Yeah.
He was the person to cut Rebecca down and perform CPR. So why was his DNA non-existent on Rebecca or the rope?
And we know how easy it is for DNA to be put on people.
It's so easy for DNA to transfer. Another point that is often discussed is the type of knots that were used to bind Rebecca's hands and feet. These knots were a specific type of knot, which is often used in sailing. And guess who worked as a tugboat operator? Adam. Whether that's significant or just simply a coincidence has never been established, but it is something that is frequently mentioned whenever this case is discussed. There's also criticisms of the investigation itself. Rebecca's body remained outside for 12 hours before the medical examiner arrived. Some people question the crime scene documentation, saying that certain photographs didn't appear to match some of the diagrams that investigators later produced. For example, in the pictures, it clearly shows a tumble dryer sheet laid between both the knives, but that was never taken, booked into evidence, or looked at. And a side note, it turns out that dryer sheets are really good at wiping prints away.
Really?
Yeah, a bit like a microfiber cloth, I would assume. So whether any of those things would have changed the outcome is impossible to know, but they've continued to fuel the debate ever since. Rebecca's family eventually filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Dina, her sister Nina, and Adam, alleging that Rebecca had been murdered and that her death had been staged to look like a suicide. Obviously, this isn't a criminal trial, so regardless of the outcome, no one would face prison. Instead, the family wanted all the evidence examined in court. During those proceedings, Dina and Nina were able to show that they had been at the hospital with Max throughout the night, supported by CCTV footage. So that effectively leaves Adam as the only remaining defendant. Unlike a criminal trial where guilt has to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt, this was a civil case, so Rebecca's family lawyers only had to convince at least 9 out of 12 jurors that it was more likely than not Adam was responsible for Rebecca's death. And in 2018, that's what happened.
Even though they're not charging him?
No, so no criminal.
They just have to basically say, it is very likely.
Yeah.
Even though we haven't got the evidence.
Well, I won't say evidence. I think even though the police weren't willing to look at any criminal wrongdoing.
Yeah.
So in 2018, that's what happened. 9 of the 12 jurors found in favour of Rebecca's family. They concluded that Rebecca had not died by suicide and awarded her family millions of dollars in damages. But despite that civil verdict, I believe Rebecca's family was hoping that this would then trigger a criminal investigation. But no criminal charges have ever been brought against anybody. And officially, Rebecca's death is still to this day ruled a suicide. So more than a decade later, we're left with the same question people were asking back in 2011. Was this a deeply tragic suicide following an unimaginable accident, or did somebody get away with murder?
I think someone got away with murder.
I do too. And that is why the death of Rebecca remains one of the most debated and controversial unexplained cases in modern American true crime. Thoughts?
I need to see how big them banisters are.
Yep.
And I do think someone got away with murder.
I just think how many coincidences can you have before it just stops being a coincidence? So, for example, don't sue me, I've got no, you can take anyway, so whatever. My opinion, if you have cut somebody down from a noose and you've performed CPR on a body, which you said you did do, Where is your DNA?
Where is it?
It makes no sense. The knots.
Yeah.
It might seem like a little thing to normal people, but when you've got people that boat and sail,
Yeah, well, I do fishing.
and you have
There's certain knots that I can tie, and there's certain knots that I'm just like, how the fuck do you tie that? Now, would you be able to tie any fishing knots?
no.
There you go.
So I think that again is it a coincidence?
Mm,
I also find it strange that every speck of blood or any DNA trace found within that bedroom was never big enough to test.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it'll get reopened in future.
Who knows? A family, even to this day, are still like campaigning because they do not believe for 1 second it was a suicide. And then you look at it from the perspective of Max, a 6-year-old boy has just gone skittling over a banister.
Yeah.
That's ruled a tragic accident.
Yeah.
I just find it hard to believe that someone would strip themselves naked, be able to tie your feet tightly enough that it bruises. Then you've got to teach.
I think I said it earlier in the episode. They're not fucking a wizard.
You said Houdini, but yeah.
Houdini.
Tie your hands behind your back. You've got. I just can't understand the order in which.
If they think it's plausible, I'd like to see them do it. You do it and record it. And I want to see that shit.
The reconstruction of it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the order in which they believe that she did all these things to herself before throwing herself over a balcony.
I want to see it in the video.
Reconstruct it.
Yep.
So that's the case of Rebecca. And honestly, it is one of the, like, the divide, again, between definitely not suicide and then other people saying, no, it definitely, she felt guilty.
Yeah, it was a really good case. Read that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
So episode 8, that's a wrap.
Complete. Before we go, please help us on social media because it seems to have slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, it is slowing down, but we're just going to keep slogging away.
So
that's a wrap.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Love you. Bye.